The first Middle-earth game, Shadow of Mordor, released in 2014 and surprised critics and gamers alike. It made use of gameplay mechanics similar to that of a Batman Arkham game and made it work within the universe of The Lord of the Rings. While it did suffer a bit in the story department, it was still quite an entertaining romp through Mordor. Now Middle-earth Shadow of War is here and looks to improve on the formula created by the first game. Does it successfully do so? Well, let's find out. Shadow of War picks up right where the first game left off. The joined spirits of legendary ancient elfsmith Celebrimbor and Ranger of Gondor Talion have just crafted a new ring of power and intend to even the odds with Sauron and conquer all of Middle-earth. The duo also enter a conflict with the Witch King and Sauron himself yet again. These conflicts do feel a little drawn out, however, due to some of the heavy dialogue filling the sequences. An additional conflict that occurs is between Celebrimbor and Talion. This conflict grows between the two from the word go and actually makes the characters more interesting. The game's campaign also features some seriously memorable moments and are thoroughly enjoyable to play through. However, the game does take some liberties with the Lord of the Rings lore here and there. Shadow of War's gameplay is very much like its predecessor, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing since the combat and traversal works really well, except for when Talion gets stuck on a ledge. And this is something that can be incredibly frustrating when you're trying to be stealthy. A new and improved upgrade tree allows for a host of upgrades and perks to be applied to both Talion and Celebrimbor so that they are best equipped to handle any fight that they may encounter. Many of the various upgrades are quite helpful, which can make choosing which node to unlock next quite tricky. This never really feels like a bad thing though, since you're always really spoiled for choice. You're likely to need all the ability upgrades you can get, as Uruks in Shadow of War are much more aggressive this time around. While dealing with a single Uruk is extremely easy, fighting a large group of them requires attention and skill, or else you'll be overwhelmed. It doesn't really matter just how upgraded Talion is, as there's always a possibility of dying if you aren't careful. I felt that this kept the challenge fresh from start to finish. However, dying isn't all that bad, as it impacts on the Uruks of Middle-earth. When Talion dies, time advances and various Uruks can level up and be promoted to captains thanks to the Nemesis system. Captains provide for some of the most entertaining moments in Shadow of War. They have so much more character and each one has a mixture of traits, strengths and weaknesses. Having a captain enter the fray during a fight is so dramatic, as if they made a beeline for Talion once spotting him. And the characteristics vary as well. Some are wordy, others simply scream, and then you get Uruks who are just downright poetic and musical. Sometimes it's a bit of a shame that you have to kill them off. Thankfully these encounters are plenty, since the captains are randomly generated and you will continue to meet more of these characters hours upon hours into the game. Killing Uruk captains and war chiefs also have the chance to drop some impressive loot, which Talion can then equip. All gear can be upgraded, but it's really the special loot that requires you to complete a challenge in order to unlock the next upgrade option. The challenges themselves aren't incredibly hard, and most of the time you'll actually complete them without even realizing it. Gear definitely plays a much bigger part in Shadow of War, which is a nice touch and also adds a layer of strategy to the gameplay. Some of the weapons and armor looks pretty nice too, even if a lot of them look the same. I do have one gripe though, and it is a bit of a small one, but the fact that your equipped gear doesn't show up in cutscenes is somewhat irksome. Circling back to the Nemesis system, it can be difficult deciding to kill an Uruk captain for loot or taking control of them so that you can add them to your army. The latter makes way for one of the biggest new features in Shadow of War, and that is the fortresses. Conquering a fortress requires an army of Uruks and some preparation, namely taking control or killing war chiefs. Thereafter, breaching the walls of the fortress and holding capture points doesn't pose much of a challenge, since you have an army led by your selection of captains. The latter can be upgraded with mounted cavalry or a host of other options in order to bolster their attack. The big battle at the end with the overlord of the fortress and his guards can be quite a fight, making up for the easier early part of the fortress takeover. Once the fortress has been taken, you are able to designate your own forces to hold the fortress against other attacks. This rings true for the game's single player and multiplayer. Shadow of War's multiplayer is asynchronous, with other players being able to download a copy of your Uruks to fight against. This essentially means that your Uruks are loot as well. While they are great to have around for acting as spies or assassins against other Uruks, there isn't much control of your captain during attack or defense of a fortress, which unfortunately makes it feel as if there's very little strategy involved. Shadow of War also features some controversial loot boxes which can offer loot such as weapons and Uruks. However, this can be done by playing the game and killing Uruks, and since the combat is one of the best parts of the game, there's very little reason to invest in the microtransactions. Visually, Middle-earth Shadow of War looks great. The character models look much better than what they did in the first game, and the various locations you visit are unique, even if they are inhabited by the same enemies and animals. The audio is very much on par with the visuals. The soundtrack gets all the right notes, and the sound effects even more so. There's nothing like hearing the clanging of steel as you brutally execute an enemy. The voice acting is also top-notch, with special mention going to Troy Baker and Gideon Emery for their portrayal of Talion and Bruce the Chopper respectively. Middle-earth Shadow of War is a great game and a nice step up from Shadow of War. The strong combat, stealth and traversal make navigating Mordor an incredibly enjoyable experience even outside of missions. The improved Nemesis system also makes the game much more interesting, with Uruks being able to do much more once brainwashed, in addition to hundreds of randomly generated Uruks that make for memorable encounters. It's an amazing game and an awesome follow-up to its predecessor. If you enjoyed this review, please hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be kept up to date with the channel, you can click the bell icon next to the subscribe button to get email notifications every time I upload something. And if you got your hands on Middle-earth Shadow of War, let me know what you think of the game in the comment section down below. I'd really love to know what your thoughts and opinions are. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.